Hello, everyone. Buenas hora. Buenas hora. I'm Sean Luna McAdams. I'm a manager at the Center for Effective Global Action, which is a think tank based at UC Berkeley. I want to begin by just saying thank you to the GeoField Consortium for bringing us all together, and the phenomenal FAO staff, Andrea in particular, who have been helping us to beam us all over the world and have kept us fed and caffeinated throughout the day. Very much appreciated. Some of you might know my colleague Jenna Fale. She is the manager for the agriculture program at CEGA, but she couldn't make it, so I came instead. Life is tough. And I'm painfully aware that I have the enviable position of being the last person between you and the open air museum that is the city of Rome. So I will be as efficient as possible so that we can get to aperitivo and an Aperol Spritz quickly. It really is a pleasure to be here. So just to give you an idea of what I'll be talking about, I'll sort of give you an introduction to CEGA and to the two programs that sort of speak most directly to the substantive focus of this meeting. And then we'll move on to the motivation behind the ATAI data portal, talks about its value, and then I'll do a brief demonstration. So an introduction to CEGA. As I mentioned, we're a think tank based at UC Berkeley. We are a West Coast hub for development researchers and practitioners. We have over 150 affiliated faculty members at 27 universities. We also have a long-running fellowship program that brings researchers from Africa to UC Berkeley to live and learn at UC Berkeley. So we are all about the translation of research into practice. An introduction to ATAI. ATAI is the Agricultural Technology and Adoption Initiative. It aims to generate a rigorous evidence base that helps to carefully identify whether particular approaches are successful in spurring agricultural transformation. It is a collaboration between CEGA and JPAL, generously funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and UK Aid. To date, we funded over 40 randomized evaluations to test programs that increase farmer welfare through the broader use of productive technologies in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Now to data science for development. This is my program. My program does three main things. We support research, we build community, and we do trainings. So I thought better to give you actual examples. I'm more of an inductive thinker, so it's always nice to have a tangible thing in front of you. So in terms of research, much like ATAI, we compete out funds to researchers in our network and outside of our network to generate new evidence and new tools that draw on recent advances in machine learning and using novel types of data like texts and satellite imagery and all these new sources of evidence that we can bring to the table to have a better idea of what works and what doesn't work for development. So Mosaics is a really cool tool that Tamara Carlton and Saul Sheng and a whole team of researchers at both UC Berkeley and UC Santa Barbara developed, which basically automates a lot of the storage and downloading of the satellite imagery, and it just spits out these, they call them features, from satellite imagery, so that you're working at the end with some nice tabular data, so you don't have to know really any of the fancy neural net architecture or anything like that. You can just sort of say, hey, I want some satellite features from this part of the world, and then all you have to do is spatially merge those features with the data that you have and run a penalized regression. They recommend using a ridge regression. We also do community building, so the best example there is measuring development. Every year we host a conference with the World Bank where we're featuring sort of the frontier of science using these machine learning approaches and sort of leveraging these novel data sources to answer questions that we care about what works best to reduce poverty. Sort of in the middle are research roundtables. So most recently, our Targeting Aid Better initiative brought together a bunch of folks working on folks that are developing algorithms to better allocate aid all over the world using mobile data and satellite imagery. It's sort of a nascent field, and we think it's really has a lot of value. So we convened a bunch of researchers at UC Berkeley to sort of exchange ideas and continue to push that forward. We're also really invested in training, and in the data science realm, particularly in the development field, this is a place where there's a lot of work to do. So we are aspirationally trying to set up an embedded lab with one of our partners in Africa, directly with a government ministry. So very much drawing inspiration from IPA's model of embedded labs there, but instead of it being focused on impact evaluation, it would be focused on sort of data science approaches and machine learning algorithms. And there's sort of these two sort of middle areas here. So the mix between training and research, we hire a lot of GSRs and interns to help work with our faculty members on concrete research projects. So to give you a really straightforward example, we're working with a researcher based at MIT who has developed an algorithm to automatically detect small landholders' plots. She tested it in India, and now we're sort of seeing if it works in Rwanda, and we hired a GSR to help us clean some perimeter data that One Acre Fund provided to us, who is a partner on that project. And then down here at the center, sort of the middle ground between training and community building is Geo4Dev. So we, alongside 3IE and New Light Technologies, set up this website called Geo4Dev that shares very well documented code that replicates very complex geospatial analysis from academic publications. And the idea there is, let's centralize all of the code and all of the data into one place to make it a lot easier for folks that are curious about how to use these approaches to sort of just run through an example so that they can start to sort of get their hands in the dough, so to speak. So the value of this portal is that it harmonizes a lot of different data from a single portfolio. So ATAI is a really long-running program at CEGA. There's been over, as I mentioned, 40 different studies. And the idea is basically that data aggregation is really costly, but very valuable. But it's no one's job to aggregate data, to bring together different studies. So this is very much a public good, and we want folks to go on the website and download data from it. To give you an idea of how costly the aggregation is, the harmonization, it takes about 20 to 40 hours to harmonize a single study. But data sharing is really critical for this, and that's part of the reason why we drew on our existing community to sort of start up this portal, because you have to sort of get into the nitty-gritty details of the documentation of the different studies and looking at, you know, how did they measure yields? Was it tons per kilometer squared, or, you know, making sure that the unit, that's all part of the harmonization process, is making sure that the units are aligned and that the scales are the same. The GSRs that worked on this, the graduate student researchers, also wrote a script, both in R and in Stata, that basically helps apply the labels from the existing studies to the data that you download from the portal. And importantly, and I think this is something that was briefly mentioned at the last talk, we're also thinking about, okay, we're sort of uploading potentially sensitive information online and sharing it with everyone. So data privacy is obviously super important, particularly when the data is about folks that are already in a sort of vulnerable situation. So the portal uses standard best practices. The data is jittered within a 5-kilometer radius within the same administrative unit. There's 17 total studies in the portal right now. And I think they're planning on adding a handful more in October. So the portal categorizes the variables in a handful of different buckets. There's the identifiers, administrative information, assets, consumption, agricultural inputs, crop production, livestock, revenue, shocks, household characteristics, plot characteristics, and this is one of the things that's really exciting about this portal is there's also a whole slew of environmental data that were taken from Google Earth Engine. So that includes luminosity, forest cover, soil properties, normalized difference vegetation index, and NDVI, precipitation, and temperature. And we used the georeferences in sort of the original data from the impact evaluations to join this environmental data. And basically, the steps are pretty straightforward. I'll show you in the demonstration, but it's one, you build your sample, so you select sort of the filters that you want to use. So if you really care about yields in West Africa, you would just select, I want data from these countries, and I want the outcome data for yields at sort of the plot level, and then you would hit search. It would tell you these are all the studies that have that data, and then you just download it. One caveat that my colleague Jenna asked me to mention is if all of you go online right now to the website to try to download data, it will be slower than if you try to download it on your own at a later time. So apparently the traffic matters, so just figured I would mention it. All right, so enough prelude, let's go to the website. This is a QR code, or you can go to ataidata.org. So I'll let people scan the QR code for a minute. I'm still seeing people with their phones. By all means, go for it. Okay. I'm going to switch over. Oops, sorry. There we go. And we're going here. Okay. Great. So, again, very easy. One of the filters is the year that the baseline survey was taken. So you can see here, sort of the range is from 2010 to 2018. Then you can select based on the country. Because this is a relatively small set of projects, only 17 projects, there aren't that many countries represented in the platform yet. You can search based on intervention. So again, if you're interested in seed interventions or some kind of mobile phone informational intervention, insurance, etc., you can, again, filter through that. And then, really cool, you can filter based on the unit of analysis, right? So that really matters depending on if you want really granular information or if it's okay if it's at a higher level of abstraction. So again, the three levels that are coded up right now are plot level, crop level, and household level. So once you search based on that, if you don't put anything in there, it'll just list every single study that we have on the platform. And the other really nice thing about this is that, for example, you can, if you're curious about what a particular study was, hold on, let me just hide this floating meeting controls. There we go. For example, providing foodstuffs and cash loans to improve smallholder farming in Zambia. You want to know more about what that study entailed? You can click right here on this directly, and it will take you to the ATAI research website, where it gives you information about who did the study, gives you more of a narrative about what the study was trying to address, what the evaluation entailed, exactly what the intervention looked like, the results, and policy lessons, the sample, etc. So you can sort of get a sense of what you're downloading before you ever get the data in your inbox. So if you were to say, okay, I really want that, so let me just plug in random things in here so that, no. Cool. So if you want everything, if you want all the variables, you would just select here, all variables. You want all the environmental variables, again, select all, and then get your data. You have to fill in sort of information about who you are and your email, most importantly, because the way this works is you put in your email, and then at some point you will get an email from the portal with the data. And that's it. That's how it works. If anybody has questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Hi, Sean. This is Dan Stein from ID Insight. First question. So I guess these are just like from a bunch of studies. Is there some kind of like map of where the study areas are? Like I just went through and downloaded, but like I don't know where the data is going to be.
So it varies study to study. They, at the very least, include georeferences for either the centroid of the administrative unit where the study occurred, or georeferences for example, I downloaded data from the DIRT study by Chris Soudry in northern Ghana, and it gave me georeferences for the villages, for each village where the households that were surveyed were. So it doesn't give you georeferences for every single survey site, but it does give you georeferences for the villages. But it varies study to study. So some studies may not, I presume all the studies that are hosted here have georeferences, but I haven't gone through and downloaded every single one to check.
Thanks. This is Somoko from Precision Development. So this looks like a great tool. I'm just wondering if you have a vision of also aggregating the results in some ways. So for example, doing meta-analysis of certain types of studies and so forth.
Exactly, yeah. So really anything that adds value when you bring together more studies, right? So meta-analysis would be one. Another example would be, which is the reason why I downloaded this data from Ghana, is you could use presumably this data as ground truth data for a machine learning algorithm if you're reasonably sure that that data is going to be a good representation of where you want to use the model to predict.
So following up that question, so
could you introduce yourself?
My name is Ahmad Mohsen. I'm from American Institute for Research. So you mentioned that you jitter the data, so by 5 kilometers. Then if you do that, if you want to use it for like a machine learning model, let's say to predict like crop production at a field, how would we be able to do that?
Well, the data is jittered within the same administrative unit, and yes, obviously because it's jittered, it's going to induce some error, and then it'll be up to you to appraise whether that amount of error is acceptable or not based on the particular application that you're working on.
Okay, thank you.
So my name is Eduardo García Bendito, part of CGIR. I have a question on the data harvesting process and data mining. So the data is coming from, in this example, two projects. Is this kind of like some form of literature review, or how do you select those projects a little bit? And then another question on the standardization. I imagine the data is very varied structure. We deal also with a lot of issues in this sense. So how do you go about that, and how are those processed? Perhaps reported is also interesting to learn about.
Yeah, so there's a documentation tab here as well that goes into not a ton of detail as to how the harmonization process took place, but you could read more about it there. To your first question was, can you remind me? I'm so sorry.
So the selection of those projects or literature review.
Yeah, so ATAI was a portfolio of projects that CEGA funded. So we had the purse strings, so we had a lot of power to tell the researchers, you have to tell us everything you did, you have to be super transparent. So we used that as a way of having access to all the information you need in order to then be able to harmonize appropriately. So there's no objective reason. It was simply sort of organizational efficiency. And then to your second question, the harmonization process is just a lot of labor. We depended very heavily on two graduate students who have done a phenomenal job parsing through all that information.
I just a follow-up, because I completely agree. I want to give credit to sometimes the people who do these things in the back, but thanks for that. And then also, like, are there plans to expand on this set of projects, and how do you think to go about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be completely honest. I think it's really cool, and it would be great. It's sort of like social media, right? There's an extrinsic value to having more things on there if the goal is to aggregate more and more evidence into a single place. But that's sort of above my pay grade. I don't know who gets to decide whether the door will be opened for other studies, other folks. But I think, given how much work it is to harmonize the data, I think that'll be the pain point. Who pays for that, and who bears the cost of harmonizing the data?
Hi, Sean. Another question. Actually, this is more on the mosaics work. I'm wondering if you have, so you guys funded that, like the mosaics paper? Is that how it worked?
So the mosaics was developed by some of our faculty affiliates, but they developed that on their own. What we funded was the development of the API that everyone can use to sort of access the features from a particular year.
Is there like a roadmap development for mosaics? I mean, I don't know, we've taken a look at it and think it's like super awesome, but if I understand correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's just like one image from 2019.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, we could do so much with this if we had a time series. I'm just wondering if there's like more in the mix that you guys are doing, or?
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly say that Tama and her team are very interested in expanding the mosaics tool to include more years so that you can start to do the type of change detection work that's, sort of at the frontier of this research field. Again, I'm not entirely sure what's the status of that. I know it's aspirational, and there's certainly both demand and interest, but I think it also comes down to a question of money.
Do you have any information on who answered the questions in the questionnaires? Like, was it a man or a woman?
That's a great question. I would imagine yes. I can click back and see. I would imagine that would be under the household characteristics bucket. Oh. gender. Yeah, I can certainly bring that back, that comment back, that it would be nice to have gender in there.
Any more questions? I'm not seeing any online, so any more in the room? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.